you got to take opportunities and you just got to go after them, because I can't imagine where I would be if I didn't say yes to this. I'm having way too much fun. I'm meeting way too many people. I'm building my network. I'm learning a ton, and it's just been amazing.
Welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast, a free resource for women who work in the sports and entertainment industry. Each week we get real and talk about the things that hold us back and how we can overcome them and keep climbing to the top. And the top is however you define it. We talk about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Consider this podcast your secret weapon. You will learn from the best in the business and be able to take immediate action with all the advice that you hear. I'm your host, Jahaan Blake, a leadership development coach and consultant. I've worked in sports for 20 years. 15 of those years were spent working for the Red Sox, Dodgers, and the Cubs. After 15 years of working in the front office, I took a leap of faith and I started my own business. Friends, as a Black woman in sports, I know that the industry can take a toll on your confidence and sometimes leave you feeling defeated. Join me each week so I can support you on your journey. I promise you, each week you will feel stronger and more confident than the week before. So let's get started with this week's episode. All right, you guys, I am so excited for you to listen to our episode today with Cara Canington. She is the Senior Manager of Player Relations for the PGA Tour. We had such a great conversation. Now, I do love golf, and I was very excited to talk to her because of the golf. I mean, I forgot we were talking about golf, to be honest with you. All of her insights, everything she shares in this episode, I'm telling you, is going to empower you. She talks about how to approach internal turmoil and not let it affect your work. You know, we've all been there. She talks about why you don't have to sacrifice your authenticity to succeed in your role. She talks about a pivotal moment in her career where she was given a second chance to say yes to an opportunity, and how that experience taught her to push aside self-doubt and shine when given the chance. You know, one part of the conversation I loved, and I think a lot of you who work in the non-revenue generating departments will understand this. We got to talk about Cara's leadership style and her focus on the feel-good work, right? And how it impacts the bottom line of an organization. She shares her approaches to showing an organization the importance of this kind of work and how it can lead to the greater success for everyone involved. All right, Game of Her Own listeners, I know you're going to love this episode. Let's do this. Cara, welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. Really, really excited to be here today.
First of all, I'm so excited to talk to somebody, a woman in golf. I started playing golf because of my now husband. So I'm kind of obsessed. And I know this is more about your journey, but still, it's really cool that you work in golf. So I can't wait to dive into what you do now. But before we get there, take us back in time and tell us when you first fell in love with sports.
Oh gosh, sports have always been a part of my life. I can remember as a kid just always being on the sidelines and being a water girl for my brother's football team. My dad played sports in college. My brother was on track to be, a prospective student athlete at the collegiate level. And so I always just knew that's what I wanted to do too. The love of sport probably was sparked from just, wanting to be like my brother, be like what's going on in my family. Probably for me, the real passion started when I found a sport that I absolutely loved to play, which was lacrosse. So I had the honor of playing as a kiddo and playing in a place where it was pretty elite. Maryland is pretty known for kind of the mecca of lacrosse. And so had the opportunity to be exposed to some really high level players and coaches and go play at the University of Florida on their inaugural team. And so that was just kind of a dream come true to really live out playing at the collegiate level. And then just when I was there, realizing, man, I think I want to do this as a career. I'm going to really miss it when I don't have lacrosse to play. So what does that look like? Do I want to coach? Do I want to work in sports, the front office or something like that? So it really dates back to being a kid and falling in love with the game. And then obviously having the chance to make it a career has just been such a blessing.
So you had that thought in college, like, okay, this is coming to an end. I'm not going pro, which is the conversation I had to have with myself, which was not an easy one. I think everyone else probably knew it, but I was like, oh, wait, this ends. Oh, okay. Like, right. I didn't think about that. But was there a moment where you're like, okay, I'm going to work in sports? Were you thinking about front office? Did you know what that was at the time when you were in college?
It's kind of funny. It does come with a bit of a story, and I'm a storyteller at heart. So this is
yes, me too.
Okay, great. Tell a lot of stories, but I promise to try and keep them concise. But I actually was injured my sophomore year, and really started to realize, oh man, this is the first time I've had to sit out on the sidelines, and I didn't have sport as my outlet to get out frustrations or have fun with my friends. And I was just rehabbing, and it was just one of those things that I had that epiphany of like, okay, this is going to end. And women's lacrosse, not necessarily the most opportunity to make money as a career and play this professionally. So I kind of always knew that I probably wasn't going to play at the next level, whether it was the Team USA or some of the new women's leagues that were starting to pop up when I was graduating. So the injury really helped force me to take a look at what I wanted to do. I thought I was always going to be in business of some sort, but I hadn't really looked at sport business. Florida has a really great program called the 4+1 degree. I don't know if they still do it. I hope they do. But when I was there, what they offered was you could start taking graduate level classes when you were an undergrad, if you applied to this program, that counted for both your undergrad and your graduate level degree. So you could graduate in 5 years with a master's degree. And so because of this injury, I knew I was going to redshirt and sit out a year. I thought I could have a great internship opportunity with the University Athletic Association there. And so that was kind of my plan, to really just kind of throw myself into the sports world from the front office perspective, learn from an athletic association at the collegiate level. Thought maybe I want to be an academic advisor for student athletes. I thought a lot about, coaching and being a role model to young women, because I had so many amazing coaches in my life, but ultimately ended up in golf. So we can talk about that pivot for sure. But, it really took a turn. But I think that injury is where I would point back to saying, oh, I'm going to miss this, and I really need to keep this as part of my life, and sports need to be my career.
Yeah. Okay. We had such a similar journey at different periods of time, but like same thing. Like I tore my ACL my junior year, preseason, like 3 minutes left to go in the game, in a scrimmage, like, come on. Yeah. So like I was out for the season, and same thing, just had to start thinking about things differently. And being on the sideline was very, very difficult. So like, I was like, I need something else. And like, you just start going down a different path. And then it was just strange. Like all of a sudden it was like, oh, soccer isn't the end all be all. Like, I was just like forced to like realize that. And same thing. So then I was like, okay, how do I keep this going? And then you kind of have to learn what else is out there. So tell everybody what you do now and who you do it for.
I am a senior manager at the PGA Tour in our player relations department. Our department looks after our membership. So the PGA Tour is structured a little bit differently than most leagues. When a player kind of comes into the NBA draft and signs onto a team, he's signing a contract. He's, obligated to be at certain things and do certain things for the team based on that contract. The PGA Tour is a membership. So actually our players, they pay dues. So they pay an annual fee to be a part of the PGA Tour, and then our department actually services them. So we are there for everything they possibly need, from logistics of, hey, my mom's in town and she'd really like a parking pass this week, all the way to educating them on new initiatives and things that are coming down from the league level, whether that's, integrity policy, gambling, anti-doping, if we've got policy board opportunities where they need to vote on things, we have, the league kind of a governance body of players that help to make decisions at the PGA Tour. And so those are the types of things that we're out there week in and week out facilitating on site. So I travel a bunch. They send me to really wonderful places and the golf courses around the country and even the world. I would say when you're on site, it's pretty operational heavy, pretty relationship heavy. You're running around, you're having conversations, it's fast paced, you're trying to knock things off the to-do list, all while kind of having that overarching goal of getting that education piece done or setting up that governance meeting or something like that. So you're pulled in a million directions when you're on site, but when you're not on site, you're usually back. Our headquarters is in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. So we're usually putting together, updated or new programs, things like our new player tour app. So where guys can check, tee times and tournament information and things like that. So you're constantly looking ahead to the next week and trying to think about what the membership would need in order to be successful out there and play the best golf they can. So it's really fun. It's really fast paced, but a lot of problem solving day in and day out.
Okay. So you are a strong storyteller, because I'm telling you, like I asked my husband 1,000 questions about golf because like that's his like, he golfs a lot. Let me just say that. And so yeah, he's really good. But I like ask him to teach me and I ask him certain questions. And one thing I never knew was I didn't realize the players pay dues. Like the way you guys are structured is so interesting. I think a lot of people will find that interesting. They probably didn't know, especially if they're not golf fans, but are sports fans in general. I think that's very interesting. So now you've been in golf for almost 10 years now. Did that happen right out of college? Take us through that and like how you got that job.
I can attribute my golf journey to starting back in junior golf. I did play when I was younger. My grandfather taught me the game, and growing up in Maryland, I used to go out on the par 5 of Maryland Golf and Country Club's #1 and back on the par 5 #9. And I very much disliked it. It was hot. It was tiring. We were scoring 16s on one hole. And I said, what is this sport? I'm trading the golf club out. I'm going to pick up a lacrosse stick. And that's ultimately what I pursued. But I was so grateful to have the golf knowledge and kind of that background of how golf works and the tradition and the rules and integrity piece of it that my grandfather had instilled in me, because it really did help me get to where I was with the PGA Tour and that opportunity. So upon graduating from grad school, I really, like I told you, I thought I was going to be an academic advisor. I thought I was going to tell kids, hey, you're not going to go pro in your sport. Let's focus on school and kind of what you want to do after as a career. And I had the opportunity to go to an NCAA forum and kind of learn a bit more about that world. And at the same time, had a knock on my door for an informational interview at the PGA Tour. Had a friend of a friend who knew someone, and hey, why don't you just learn more? Not a specific role, but I know you played golf when you were a kid and it could be a fit because you live in Florida. And I said, okay, great. That sounds fun. So I took the informational interview. It led to a real interview. And so I was hired as a coordinator in our community impact department. And I spent the better half of 8.5-ish years doing community impact for the PGA Tour. And I tell people this all the time. It was the warm and fuzzy job. Like I absolutely adored it. I mean, we were doing the Make-A-Wishes with the players. We were doing military appreciation, volunteer recognition, just anything that you were seeing that was a feel-good story on the telecast, or even when there wasn't a camera there. The Amy Bockersteady and Gary Woodland story, that was one of my passion projects that we got to put together. If you're not familiar, I'll have to send you the link after. We can include it maybe, but it's just such a special video, and still keep in touch with the family, right? So I had this amazing start to the tour where it was sunshine and so much warm and fuzzy, happy tears at work. And then transition to kind of more this put on your big girl pants, like this is the real deal. You're interacting with our players every day where there's, real challenges or important problems, very core piece of the business to relate to our players at the league level. It kind of fed into more of my competitive piece and that piece from college that I felt come back a little bit of, okay, I do have this lovely, nice, warm side of me, but I also have this side that, I want to kick some butt and take some names. So it's been a nice transition to this piece of the business for the last 1.5-ish, and just kind of making a new path. It's still in golf.
One thing a lot of people get when they work on the feel good side of the business, it's necessary. I think all of us who have worked in that space know the value of it. Did you ever run into a challenge in illustrating what that value was, right? Because it's not a metric. It's not something you can necessarily measure yet. I'm sure there's some people working on it. But did you ever run it? I'd love to hear your perspective. And I think others would gain value from that, how you did that.
As someone who, again, spent a lot of time in that part of the business, I appreciate the value of being able to talk about it and explain that there is value in that. So I will say that the tour is in a bit of a unique situation in terms of other leagues as well, because we've always valued community and giving back. And so this is a core pillar. So they knew that it was important, and they knew that storytelling around it would be a way to kind of really magnify what we're doing and showcase the importance of it. So I would say for the first half of my career, we were probably doing it almost like, if the tree falls in the woods, does anyone, hear it?
Yeah.
And it was kind of one of those situations, like, we're doing it and we know it's the right thing to do. And we know that these relationships are leading to kind of almost that spider web throughout the community of, oh, did you hear about this? And, oh yeah, and that was the tour. And, oh, this player did that. Or, and you create these fans, you create kind of a core belief, really, that the tour is doing what they said they're going to do and do good for the community and leave it better than when we blew into town the year before, because we are a traveling circus. It really shifted, and I credit a lot of this to our head of content and having a vision that when we could turn that camera from inside the ropes to kind of what was happening outside the ropes. To your point, you can't really put a metric on it, but I think the Amy Gary story is a perfect example of really people's eyes were opened of, oh, okay, I get it now. I can see the power of this. I mean, that was our first video outside of a golf video that went viral and really got traction from people who, Amy has Down syndrome. And so it was people just flooding in messages of, I didn't know that the PGA Tour did things like this. I didn't know that golfers could also have Down syndrome and be successful on the course. I didn't know until I saw Amy that this could be possible for my daughter or my nephew or whatever it might be. So it was really inspiring. And so we saw the numbers tick, tick, tick up. And I don't even know where it landed now with all the combinations, but I want to say it was somewhere in the, 30 to 40 million by the time it kind of was all said and done. But that was something that we could tangibly bring to leadership and say, hey, like, this is working, whether we put a camera on it or not, and I'd prefer to put a camera on it just so we can share. But sometimes there's a lot of value in doing things behind the scenes. And this happens each week, whether we have a camera or not, right? We're connecting players, we're connecting the communities to hopefully build a stronger bond and help them see that we're not just a league that blows into town once a year and doesn't care. And you can kind of see that through our volunteer force, through our title sponsors who, a great example would be the Travelers Championship, where their Travelers employees are our volunteers that week. And so they're putting their heart and passion into the tournament and they see firsthand what it does for their community. I will talk about that all day of how, the community impact piece might not have maybe the CRM behind it, but it certainly is so valuable. And I've seen it really turn the tour's strategy of storytelling into a direction that really leans on that pillar to help us each week and share what's going on out there to our fans.
So what I hear you saying is the tour values it. It's one of your pillars. And a lot of organizations have that same thing where it's one of their pillars. But what I hear you did is, like, you showed leadership it was working. So you just didn't rely on the fact that it was a core pillar and they were going to value it no matter what. You also made sure that they understood that it was working and it was making a difference in your overall organizational goals. Did I get that right?
100%. And I would say, I think it was a huge nod to my leadership at the time of, hey, Cara, here's a project. Why don't you take this and run with it? And kind of didn't micromanage, didn't want to tell me how to do something, and really saw the value in letting me kind of run with something. And that was my opportunity to say, okay, we do it this way, but if you're going to give me a project, like, I'm going to try to knock it out of the park, right? So let's elevate it. Let's really show them, if we're going to continue to get to do this every week, that's awesome. But, let's continue to make it bigger and better and more so that others can really see, like I said, that magnifying glass of, you have to shout for people's attention in that kind of realm, or else, it is easily, I don't want to say dismissed, but just everyone knows it's important up here, but in your head, but you want to make sure that it connects to their heart. So that was my goal, is kind of continuing to build it and make it bigger and better so that it was connecting with people's hearts.
This was your goal when you were a coordinator. Is that right?
That was my journey between a coordinator and manager level. I was about, I had that opportunity to kind of run with these projects. Like I said, John Flashner was my leader at the time. We call him Flash affectionately. It's at a nonprofit in Orlando called Give Kids the World, an amazing organization if you ever get a chance to check it out. But I think it was his leadership principles of, like, yes, just like I know this is important. I know you have the heart for it, and I'm going to give you that space and freedom. Even as a little coordinator starting out, I want to see what you can do with this. And I think that was probably one of the best things that could have happened to me at the tour, where a lot of folks might get into a lower level position right away, starting out, and not have the freedom or the reins to get to try and do something like that. And I do think that having a boss like that who is, kind of throwing you into the big meeting and saying, hey, present what you just did, instead of me doing that as the leader of the department, those kinds of opportunities ultimately led me to where I am now. So I really do attribute a lot of my successes now to my leadership that gave me those opportunities.
Sometimes when we get those opportunities, it's scary. You think about them for a very long time, and then you are presented with them, and it's just like, oh shit, it's time for me to shine. Like, I wanted this. Now I can speak, and whoever's listening, I wonder if you've been in the same position where like you get the opportunity and you freeze, or you have a lot of self-doubt and it causes you to not produce your best work. How did you avoid, or did you have self-doubt, and how did you manage it?
I think that this goes back to being an athlete, right? Like I was a goalkeeper, so it was kind of that pressure that, if you're in a goal scorer or a defender, you either have that mentality of like, give me the ball, I want the ball, or bounce pass it away, right? Or like, give me that hero or zero moment. And it was just like that. You're exactly right. Of, you got those butterflies, big time to come up with a big save for your team, so to speak, that metaphor, right? And it definitely had self-doubt. I mean, everyone, I think, struggles with that, especially being a female in the industry, especially being a female in a male-dominated industry. You kind of look around and feel a bit of imposter syndrome, or do I know what I'm talking about, or am I going to be taken seriously? But ultimately, the confidence that comes from that was, for me, practice and reps. I'm a big practice person. I'm practicing my speeches in the shower. I'm, going over what I'm going to say. I'm wanting to feel as prepared as possible for any scenario, right? To be able to then react in the best way possible. It reminds me of we used to have a mental toughness coach at Florida, great guy who spoke to us about the power of visualization and things like that, preparation. And he told a story, and I should know the name of this athlete, and I apologize, but there was a runner super sick that day. He set out to break the 4-minute mile, but he went after it, and he was running, and a guy actually pushed him out of bounds. And he, immediately, that was not a scenario that he had maybe thought of over and over in his head. And so when he got up, he had the wherewithal, because he'd been there in his head a lot, visualizing what he was going to do in every scenario, maybe not this specific scenario, but he then knew that if you took one step forward, you would be disqualified. So he had the wherewithal, the time to breathe, taking that 1 second to say, okay, what do I need to do to be successful? Taking that step sideways back onto the course and then going forward. It's almost just having that moment to like breathe, tell yourself you can do this, and then moving forward with it. So I think as a goalie, I always want to just react or, give the answer right away or fire it off, but reminding yourself that pause, that breath, it's a really big deal, and it can ultimately really lead you to the right place.
Yeah. So it's almost breath work in a sense, or just what's the opposite of not having a knee-jerk reaction, right? Like, just take a minute, like it's going to be okay. Just 1 minute, 30 seconds, and just breathe before you react, and let the fear of what could go wrong flood your mind. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that probably comes from the goalkeeper mentality, right? Whether it's an opportunity where you have a chance to take that breath before the shot's coming, whether it's, like a penalty shot or something, so you can get set, relax those shoulders, everything, all the actual technical pieces of it. I don't think that goes away when you're in the boardroom, of physically telling yourself to, okay, get that head on straight, relax, physically get your body to a place where then you can, speak and communicate how you want to in that scenario. So a lot of translations from the actual inside the ropes on the field experience to the boardroom.
Yeah, it sounds like it's helped you throughout your career. So now you make this switch from the community and the feel-good work, and now you are working directly with the players. That was your promotion, is that right?
Correct. Yes. Okay. It was a position I was not looking to get into. It kind of found me, but yes, that's exactly where I landed now.
Okay. So tell us what that was like. I mean, we all know, right? Sports, it's a male-dominated industry. It's not a secret. I think there's been huge progress in the 20 years that I've been in sports. So we're seeing progress. But I'm curious to understand what your experience was like getting this promotion, working directly with the players. And I don't know if you were thrown in the fire, but that's what I imagine, because that's what happens to all of us, and what that was like.
A good guess. Yes, always trial by fire.
Yeah.
Would we have it any other way, right? Like go to the deep end and figure it out. Like I said, it kind of found me. I was lucky enough that some of the work that I had done, the tour loves to give opportunities for special projects outside of your day role. When I did work in community impact, every 2 years, I had the opportunity to work on the President's Cup, which is our kind of big team golf event, the international team versus the United States. That kind of travels to some amazing places in the world to go play. And they needed a liaison on the team to look after the wives and the girlfriends of the partners of the golfers. And so I raised my hand for that. I actually had the chance to go do that, right? So it's very outside of your day role, but you're exposed to different people, exposed to the players, exposed to different part of the business. And so that led me to get to work with my current boss now. So that's kind of how he saw my work. He learned that he could trust me. And I'm grateful for that, because then it led to a phone call of, hey, we have a opening in our department for a player relations role, a traditional is what we call it, traditional player relations, where there's 4 of us that travel to the courses and do this week in and week out. Said, we've never had a female do this. Are you interested? And I told him no at first. I said, I don't know. And there was a lot going on in our world. My partner was looking at a different job in a different city. I wasn't sure if I was going to leave. Yeah. I didn't want to lead him down a path of interviewing and then kind of saying, oh, sorry, we're moving and this job couldn't load or whatever it might be. Right. Yeah. So I didn't want to cause any problems. Honestly, that was where I was coming from with oh, thank you so much for thinking of me, but no thanks. I'll just kind of keep doing this. So grateful that he didn't take that answer, because he called me back a few days later and said, yeah, I just don't know why you're saying no. Like, what do you mean? Like, what's going on? And at that time, I could explain a little bit more about, we are moving. We're going to move to Chicago. If you're okay with this role being remote, if you're okay with me having a big learning curve because I'm not going to be in the office as much. And also, if you're okay with having a female who, like, we don't know how this is going to go. Our player's going to respond a different way. And ultimately, I've never felt more supported in having a leader who is ready for this. The tour was ready for this. I feel very supported to kind of take this on, not without a few hiccups. I mean, there's definitely, you run some challenges on site, maybe people who aren't expecting that I should and can go into the locker room to do my job and things like that. So having to have that mentality of, shoulders back, like carry yourself a little strong on site and come off confident, because, there's a lot of dudes out there. So you got to get the job done. But it's going really well. I'm learning a ton as we go. And I feel like the players have been nothing but wonderful in responding to this and see me just like my counterparts, which is I'm here to do a job and I'm here to help and service. And so they ultimately come to us and hopefully trust us to get it done.
Some of the toughest conversations we have are the ones that we have with ourselves. We can convince ourselves to believe stories that we don't even know are true. What's crazy is we allow that story to take a toll on our confidence. Have you been there before? I know that I have. We get in our heads. We beat ourselves up. Here's some tough love. Nobody's got time for that. We are high achieving women who have big career goals. We don't have time to get in our own way. And I am here to support you with my new one-on-one coaching program, Step Into Your Power and Own Your Career. My clients have told me that when we work together, I've helped them get out of their own way, regain their confidence, learn how to manage their emotion and mindset. They've told me that they've been able to get their voice back and use it with confidence. The most important thing, they've told me that we've identified the obstacle that was getting in their way. If you want to learn more about this program, scroll down in the show notes, click on the link that says Step Into Your Power and Own Your Career. You can set up time to chat with me and we can figure out if this is the right program for what you need. All right, let's get back to the episode. Let's go back to this, your leader, your manager who said no to your no, right? Basically, that is what happened. So talk to us about what that was like to have somebody who managed you to really, at the end of the day, really see you and really like realize your talent and not let you pass a great opportunity or what they believe to be a great opportunity.
I think about that often, actually. I appreciate you bringing it up to expand on a bit more. I can't believe that I almost passed up something that has been so amazing, right? And it was a really good life lesson for me of, did you say no because you just didn't feel like confronting it as a challenge, or did you say no because you really didn't want it? It was a really poignant moment of self-reflection of like, wow, Cara, like you did want it and you just said no because it was probably just the easier, smoother, nice, oh, I don't want to ruffle feathers. I don't want to cause any issues. I don't want to ask to be remote. I don't want to ask for all these special things if I'm going to be a girl on site. And what does that mean with my uniform? What does that mean with going, all the different things that kind of swirl in your head when it comes to a big change. I took away from that you should always, always chase down something that you want. And I did know that I wanted it. When I said no, I hung up and I said, oh man, that's a bummer. Like maybe another opportunity will come up soon. And so I was lucky that someone called with, hey, this didn't pass you up. But it was a really good lesson to look back on and say, you might not get a second chance every time. I'm grateful I did with this one. But you got to take opportunities and you just got to go after them, because I can't imagine where I would be if I didn't say yes to this. I'm having way too much fun. I'm meeting way too many people. I'm building my network. I'm learning a ton, and it's just been amazing. So I'm really grateful that I got a second chance, but it's a good reminder that that's not always the case. So you got to seize it.
Yeah. That is incredible that you got that second chance. And to me, what I'm hearing you say is, it's almost like you made up a story in your head as to what all the answers, like how it was going to go. Like my boss is going to, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but this is what I'm imagining. My boss isn't going to be happy with the fact that I'm going to be working remote. It's going to be too difficult to be a woman and deal with these high profile players, or just players in general. Like, there was just a lot of newness to it. So it sounds like to me, you were just like, this is too much. It was almost like too much. And there's some stories that you were making up in your head that you didn't know to be true. And it sounds like they're not true, like looking at your role today. Is that fair to say?
Definitely. I think that's a great summary of, we were just coming out of COVID. There was probably some hesitation of, okay, I've been doing this routine for two and a half years now, and this is a big change, right? We're already moving and we're already doing this, and you're exactly right. You start to play this narrative in your head that isn't necessarily true. And so it is kind of undoing that and working through, what are the truths here? What are the facts? And what do I want? And what do I want my next step to be? And how do I get there? So it is just kind of taking that leap of faith past the fear, or the, the obstacles that you've made up in your head, and just doing it. And it's been wonderful. So
how do you show up every day? And so you're dealing directly with the players. We all know who those players are, and it's a big list. I imagine they all have strong personalities, which is not a negative thing. You have to prioritize them, right? They're, in a sense, like almost like your client, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're paying the dues. Like you have to service that. How'd you psych yourself up to, like, when you finally took that job and were like, okay, I got the second chance. I'm saying yes to this opportunity. What was I thinking? I want this job. How did you show up? Like you said, put your big girl pants on. Like, how did you show up to make sure that everyone took you seriously?
I wish I would have had a little more coaching in that prior to my first day of showing up, right? And we all can, hindsight's 2020, you look back and you say, oh, I wish I would have done X, Y, Z. But how I show up today is a little bit different than how I first showed up. And I think that comes with experience and kind of understanding what's really going on out there, and getting your footing. And you balance that line of wanting to come in learning and, deferring, and hey, I haven't been here. I this is new to me, so I want to learn and work in this together. But there's also a point where you have to say, no, I know I got to trust my gut here. I know what I'm doing, and I'm going to do it this way, and I'm going to go after it with this style. And I think that's been one of the biggest changes that I've seen in myself in the past year. Is I thought I had to do it maybe the way that the boys were doing it. And I love the boys. I love the boys on my team. They're one of the guys. They're wonderful. They all have a different style, right? And I would watch all of them and the way they interact and the way they get the job done. And I thought I had to do it that way. And I started to realize that I'm different, and that's a good thing. And that's why my boss wanted me on the team. And so, not to play into maybe like the stereotypical gender role, but like I tend to bring a bit more of compassion to the role. I tend to talk about feelings with our players. They tend to come to me about certain things that maybe they don't go to the boys on our team for. And I think that makes our team stronger. So as soon as I started to figure that out and kind of understand my niche, with how I was going to help the players. I think to your point and your question, that's when I started to show up a little differently. I had a little more confidence because I said, okay, I can do the same thing, but I can do it my way and it's still successful. And I didn't know if that was the case in the beginning. Can I be me? Can I bring the compassionate side, the emotional side? Is that going to still be successful out here? Or is that going to deter people? Are they not going to want to, come to me for things? And it was quite the opposite of lean into exactly who you are, Cara. And the guys will see that and respect that and ultimately respond well to that. So it's been really cool to kind of come into that in the past, I would say 6 months. I'm really feeling more confident in who I am showing up at the course. And part of that, again, comes with reps and knowing where to go, knowing the personnel out there. Was a bunch of new people to meet. Besides me, to your point, there's 156 guys in the field most weeks. And you're not going to know everyone. There's people who are qualifying off site who have never played in a PGA Tour event before. There's people who are exemptions because the tournament says, hey, we want them to be in our tournament. So you can try to use flashcards and remember everyone's names, but there's always going to be new people. And so just getting comfortable with that idea and going up and feeling comfortable. Hey, I'm Cara Canington. Nice to meet you. I'm here if you need anything. Those types of scenarios that I was not comfortable with 6 months ago. I wasn't showing up the same way. So it's fun to see that evolution.
Wow. So the themes here are like self-reflection, self-awareness, and just realize, okay, I'm doing things just like my male counterparts, but I don't need to. That doesn't feel right. That's not serving me or really the players. So I'm just going to show up as me, and having like the awareness to know, okay, like my boss hired me because I'm different from everybody else. He didn't say, go out there and be the same as, like, here's the playbook, do it exactly this way. Like, they kind of just gave you your space. That seems like to be the theme with your organization and like the people who have managed you.
I agree. And I've been very lucky to have leaders in that way. And I don't know if we flock to each other for that reason, if we just work well of, hey, if you let me do my thing, I promise. And there's trust and respect to like, I'll get it done. And that, and it's kind of that great push-pull relationship. But you're right. I mean, I think it wouldn't work if I didn't have leaders who didn't see that and didn't trust that. And sometimes I need to remind myself of that, right? Because if I'm getting that self-doubt or starting to believe a narrative that's not true, it does impact how good you can do the work. And it also impacts maybe like them saying, well, hey, like you had it 6 months ago, you had that confidence, just go keep doing that, And so
yeah.
So it's that balance of kind of keep affirming yourself in the mirror and just keep that confidence up of do you, and that will be enough for the players. They will see that and respect that. So it's been good to see unfold.
Gosh, was that scary at first?
Most definitely.
Okay.
I was very scared. I wish that I could tell you that I was going up to Rory for the first time wasn't, nerve wracking, but it is.
Yeah.
You don't want to, you want to come across professional. You want to come across as helpful, not like you're bugging them for anything, but jokey. Like there's just all the ways you want to present on behalf of the tour, on behalf of yourself, but then also, just making sure that you're taking care of their needs. So it's been a challenge to figure out all those personalities you mentioned. Everyone's different. Sometimes they don't want to be, certain players don't want to be bothered on the range and they'd rather have a conversation over a meal, and you start to learn that and make little notes, or, oh, this person likes gummy bears. Okay. When they're upset, I might have a little pack of those in my, in my bag for them or something like that. You just kind of start to take notes of how you want to approach conversations based on their personality. And that helps you gain a little more confidence and not be as scared or nervous.
Yeah. So right now, I mean, when we're recording this, it's June 13th, 2023. And so there's a lot of craziness going on with PGA Tour. How do you keep your, and I would say, craziness, like, right? And I'm saying what I see in the media. So I don't know if it's really craziness where you are, but I can only imagine anytime I see some sort of like turmoil going on in a front office setting, or, like a new owner's coming in, or an owner gets suspended, any type of turmoil, I always think of the people who are working for that organization. So of course I'm thinking of you and Live Golf and this whole combination. How do you show up to work without not letting that stuff impact you negatively?
I'm grateful to have coworkers that we can lean on, right? We are very close and we travel a lot. We're on the road together. It's like a little family out there. It's been a crazy week in golf, right? A week and a half, as Taylor Swift would say, not a lot going on at the moment. But no, I think it's tough because obviously you do what you can with the information you're given, but it really does remind me of going back. I know we've referenced it a few times now on the call, but going back to being that athlete mentality of, okay, I don't know what's going on at school or, my personal life or whatever, but when I'm on this field, I'm here to play. And this is what I'm going to do. And you kind of check all that at the door. It's with you, and it might fuel, how you're playing, but you hope that you can kind of separate the two and just do the job at hand. And so I feel like I've kind of had that mentality this past week and a half. There's a lot swirling around. There's a lot going on, a lot of emotions. And I'm grateful that we've had space as a little tour family, at least on our team, to get together and talk about those emotions and try to work through them and understand. And again, that's just a credit to good leadership in our department. But I would hope that through creating space to talk about how you're feeling, but then also understanding we got a job to do still. Like there's a tournament, right now and next week and the week after, and golf just kind of keeps rolling through the calendar. That it almost is that athlete mentality of, okay, like we're gonna get more information, we're gonna hear from this, but right now let's block all that out. This is the job at hand. And we do see a lot of our golfers right now with that mentality too. I know there's a lot going on. We want to understand. We need the details. It'll all come in time. I just want to play golf right now. So they're a good reminder for me of kind of putting that hat on and let's just get the job done. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I love that response, and not to liken it to when I was fired from the Dodgers, because leading up to that point, I remember it was just, there was a lot of internal conflict and turmoil, and it's not the same thing as what you're going through, but adjacent, I would say. And so it's so easy to get caught up and talk to your coworkers, and back to what we were talking about earlier, create these narratives that don't really exist because you don't have the answers to the question. And so it's so easy to make up answers that make sense and are sensible, but you don't really know. I remember just at one point I was like, this is a waste of time. What are we doing? Why are we talking about this? Like, because you don't know and you waste so much energy, and we don't have a lot of time to spend, right? Because if you're spending all your time worrying, then you can't do your work. And it sounds like to me, you guys are just like, this is all going on. We will get answers when we can. I love the fact that you have this open dialogue to have to talk about what you're feeling and what's going on. And then you kind of put that away and then you go to work. That to me sounds like the best advice for anybody who finds themselves in this situation.
Yeah, and I hope no one else finds themselves in this situation.
But it happens all the time, right? It just happens. It's business, yeah.
Exactly. And it is. And that's been a really important lesson to learn in all of this too, is we all love sports. That's how we fell in love with sports, but we also work in sport business. And so there's the whole another side of it that you can't be naive to it, but you also need to approach it with something that feels authentic to you. And for me, that's always been the glass half full, probably to a fault, glass overflowing, maybe. But like, it's going to be fine when maybe the house is burning. But it's not at that point, obviously, now. And I think it's cool to see the players and being around the players that do remind you. And I wish I could say this about everyone. I know everyone's processing it differently, but the players that are saying, I just want to play golf, it's like, oh yeah, like that's all we really can do. And that is a controllable. And so focusing on those controllables in something that feels very uncontrollable has helped ground me in this situation for sure.
Yes, focusing on what you can control. Like that's just it's always easier said than done. But if you can just constantly remind yourself of that every single day, right? I'm talking to everybody out here. It just makes it a little bit easier to move forward and do your job. Now, do you manage a team?
So the way we're structured is the four of us, two of us that are more junior, and I would say I'm more junior in this role. We have two VPs that are kind of more 15, 20 years experience of this role. And then there's two of us that have kind of just joined in this role in the last 2 years. So we would be considered the youngins on the team, which is fun to be a youngin again at 30 something. I love it. I love being the rookie, right? We've affectionately nicknamed ourselves Kid Nation, which is super fun. So whenever we get to do a Kid Nation event of the two younger people, we always have a good time, and it's a different vibe than maybe when you're with your VP or something. But at the moment, I don't manage any particular person or team, but I would say managing our 250 plus members is pretty much like managing a team. Between the four of us, I love that it doesn't feel so, layered and corporate and structured. It's very just like, hey, whatever the workflow is, we just need to get it done. There's no pride in authorship. There's no job too small or too big for anyone with a certain title. It's just like, we're getting it done, right? We're setting up the chairs for the governance meeting. Everyone's doing it. Or, you're editing a document. Everyone's doing it. So it feels very nice not to have maybe some of that corporate ceiling bottom basement kind of situation. Yeah. I think the nature of our business too, just being in player relations, we typically don't have a lot of junior folks in our department. I can only speak to the tour, but just in seeing the way that it's competitions and player relations departments very close to the players, they typically kind of have I don't mean it this way, but like a prove it to me kind of thing. Like, let's see how you do in other roles before we start to bring you into kind of the core business role. So again, I think kind of the ability to work on the President's Cup and kind of prove that you can be around players and do the job was key to then be able to gain that trust to be around them day to day in your everyday role.
I know servant leadership is important to you. So how does that play a role when you're not managing a team, but you are managing, almost 156 players? So how does that work for you? I ask that because I know a lot of people who want to manage a team and aren't thinking just yet about what that would look like. They're focused on the goal, and then it's like, oh shoot, I'm here. Okay, what type of manager do I want to be? So I know servant leadership is important to you, so I'd love to just hear your perspective.
I'd say it's twofold. The first part is very just literal day-to-day of I look at our players as my team and I want to serve them the best I can. And I am in a role where, yes, it's business, but I look at it a lot more like hospitality. Like, how can we take all of the stressors outside the ropes off of these players so that when they go to do their job, they can do it the best of their ability, put on the best product for our fans, play the best golf for themselves as an athlete. That's probably where my heart is at the most, is let me just take away all of the clutter so you can just go do your job. Because I know how important it was at Florida. They did such a wonderful job treating us athletes like kings and queens, right? And so, there was no excuse when you got to the field. It's like, yeah, you are like, let's go play the best you can, right? So that's the first part is honestly serving them out of like my heart truly does align with the fact that if you can help a player or a person to take away all of the distractions or frustrations or things that could be an issue, they really will have their best chance at winning or playing their best golf. The second piece of it is a little more outside of, like, not out of bounds, just outside of maybe what the traditional team idea and servant leadership would look like. Is right out of college, I wanted to stay involved with lacrosse. So I would just volunteer coach, or I would coach at the local high school, do some lessons with little goalies on the side. And I immediately found a passion for the next generation of women, right? And just like how important they are and how amazing they are. Like they're so fun and they're so confident, and they just go after it because they've seen women in their life now that have had the opportunity to do that too. And so I find that servant leadership is really pouring out to other gals that aren't even in my network in work, basically, right? So I can't tell you how many times I have something come across my desk that says, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I'd just love to talk to you about what you do. Or, hey, I am so-and-so's daughter, and they connected me to you because of this, and I would just really like to have a conversation. And I will always, and you hear me out there, I will always take the call, because I think it's really important to help people and pull them along. And, when I see, I've had like 3 or 4 of these moments, and I don't do it for this moment, but like, gosh, does it feel good, is when someone gets placed, right? Or like, oh, Cara, like the person you connected me with led me to this, and then I got an interview and I got a job. Thank you. And I'm like, don't say thank you to me. You were the one who reached out. You were the one who, put in the effort. It's my responsibility as a servant leader to pull you up with me. Like, that is how strongly I feel about it. Even though I'm not managing a coordinator day to day, or I'm not on a team where there's layers and structure, I find that the servant leadership piece for me has been so rewarding outside of it with our players, but also just young women coming into the industry, and how can I help them?
Okay. I have one last question before we move on to rapid fire. So you have your partner, Allie. You split your time between Chicago and Florida, plus you travel to wherever wherever golf is. Yeah. So how do you find that work-life balance, or some people don't like that phrase and they call it more harmony, but how do you make sure that you don't burn out and that, you know what I mean? Like you're taking care of yourself. So I just love to hear your perspective because a lot of people travel a ton for work and then they're like, they look up, they're like, wait, what happened? Like, where did I go? So I'd love to hear your experience.
I really appreciate that question. It's something I'm definitely still working on. Got to have a lot of energy if you're going to be a person on the road. Because when land, we're lucky enough that we still get our weekends at home. So when we travel, we're servicing guys really kind of before the competition starts, Monday to Thursday. Once golf starts, they don't really want to see us. And we have some great folks on the road who can kind of take care of anything else inside or outside the ropes, or they'll text us. But I would say I'm still trying to figure that out. And it's tough. My family lives in different places around the country. I've got tons of friends in different spots. To your point, you're on the road a third of the time, you're in Florida a third of the time, you're in Chicago a third of the time. And it's busy, but I look back and I say, after past year and a half of this fun, crazy ride, I look back and I say, well, what else am I going to do? Lucky enough that we're not in a situation with children or pets or anything like that, and so like my time and energy should be put into going and pushing and doing and competing out there, right? But I mean, to your point, you do have to find that time for peace, that time for resetting. I love to be around people and I'm extroverted, but to recharge my battery, I have to be by myself, have to be in my house and just kind of have a minute, a night even. So I would say a couple of tangible things I do. I'm treating airplanes like commuting now, just like, okay, I'm just getting in another car. I just happens to be in the air. And I'm not driving. So these are 2 hours where I can either like really invest in myself, whether it's a sermon or a podcast or, just listening to some music and relaxing, or I can like knock out some work. So like, it's my time, right? So I treat airplane time as like, that is my sacred time to do what I need to do to feel a little bit more reset or ahead or whatever the goal is that day. Another tangible thing I feel like is just setting aside time, whether it's a date night or a very intentional, okay, I'm going to fly to Florida for 2 days just to be with this person, right? And maybe not work, take a PTO day and really just be with my parents or be with my nephews. I think anytime I have the chance to even just go home for a night, it might seem silly, like, oh, well, why aren't you flying from Florida to the next tournament? It's like, because going home and resetting for one night even is huge. It kind of puts that mentality back at like, okay, I can repack. I'm not going point to point to point and things are crazy. Yep. Next thing you know, you look up and it's Christmas, that kind of thing. It moves fast out there, but I think those couple of tangible things have helped ground me a bit. Still, like I said, still trying to figure it out. It's a lot, but it's been fun to see it unfold, and we're getting a little better day by day.
So, I mean, the headline there is like, you make it like whatever works for you. You are not running someone else's playbook. Like you are like, I live in Chicago and Florida, and this is how I make it work. And we're still figuring it out. But these are the things I like to do. Like, so like to me, like if I flew home just for a night, that would cause more chaos in my life, right? Like it would just like, I'd be like, I want to stay home. But for you, that's a great resetting moment. And it's not what everyone else on your team does, but it's unique to you. And you're like, this is what I need to do my best work. So I'm going to do it and not worry about what other people are doing. Is that fair to say?
Yes. And it's funny to hear you say, kind of as you summarize some of my answers throughout this podcast, it's been so fun to even just kind of reflect it back to me and realize I'm having a little moment of self-reflection right now of my headline really is like, I just march to the beat of my own drum, don't I? You have to kind of do what works for you. In this scenario. Otherwise, if you start to fall into a path that's great for someone else, or this is the way we've always done it, or whatever it might be, lucky enough to have the freedom to explore what works for me and what doesn't. But it really has been having the confidence to say, like, this actually works for me. And so I'm going to do that. And therefore, I'm going to be better at my job and better at my life and better at all of the different areas that I want to show up for people. And if you don't let me do that, then I'm probably going to be a beast of a person, right? So it is finding that leadership that buys into that of like, I promise you I'll get it done. Just let me do it my way. And then supporting that and also being open to learning, of course, and growing and hearing different ways to do it, but finding the one that works for you.
Yes, I love that. All right, that's a good segue into the rapid fire questions.
Okay.
First thing that comes to mind, I swear it's easy. What is your favorite sports moment?
Man, we beat Northwestern one time, 22-4 maybe. And it was one of those things that they were on top of the world. They just won the national championship again. So it's tough. I live in Chicago now, so you kind of pull from, but they're such an enemy in school. So they had, when they tweeted it out, and this was, as social media was really on the cusp of getting big, they said something like, no, that's not a typo, because this was not a team that lost by 20-ish goals, right? This is a team that was always going to play 1 to 2 goals. And it was our senior day. And I just remember, being that inaugural team, seeing these gals for 4 years, we grew up together, we built this team, and then to beat one of the best teams in lacrosse by 20 goals, it was kind of that moment of like, wow, we've put together something very special here. This team is really special. So that was a great moment in my career.
I love that one. Okay, what is something people always get wrong about you?
That I'm good at golf. People like to assume that, oh, you work for the tour, you're good at golf. I play golf. I like to play. Not very good.
That's really funny because you said you played and I just made the assumption that you were good. I didn't even think twice about it. I was like, no, I can't play with her because she would embarrass me.
No, contrary to popular belief, you don't have to play golf to work at the tour. But yeah, no, I like to play for fun, for sure.
What is one food you wouldn't want to give up?
Ooh, lately I've been on a big Nutella kick. I love Nutella. I would not want to give that up.
Yeah, I hear you. Are you a morning or night person?
Morning.
Favorite holiday?
Oh, I love Thanksgiving, getting everyone together, football, food, family. It's the best.
Yeah. Dog and cat person?
Both. Love animals.
Oh, both. All right. What product would you seriously stockpile if you found out they weren't going to sell it anymore?
So I drink this Rishi jasmine green tea. Big fan. I like it in the morning. I'm not a coffee drinker. So, I don't need caffeine in the morning. I probably shouldn't. I'm bouncing off the walls if I am. But this does have a little caffeine in it. And it's a great tea. I highly recommend it. I would have to buy them out if they were going to get rid of it. I
can't believe that you don't need caffeine in the morning. I'm super jealous. What is the name of the tea?
It's called Rishi, Rishi. I haven't poured it yet, but I just have my big cup of tea right here. Here you go, ready to go.
I'm sorry. You guys cannot see this, but is your tea in a measuring cup?
It is. I like to pour the water in, then I'll do the tea bag, I'll heat it up in the microwave, and then I pour it over ice and make a nice tea in the morning.
Oh, okay. I thought you were drinking out of the measuring cup.
No, this was just steeping while we were chatting. So
not that there's anything wrong with that, right? Going back to doing things that work for you, whatever.
Yeah, no judgment, right?
What is your favorite app?
Use a lot of the travel apps these days. But man, for fun, I know for sure. I've been using this budgeting app lately called YNAB. You Need a Budget. Big fan. They have some great YouTube videos. It's really an interesting way of thinking about your money and saving up for things that matter to you. And I had a friend in my Bible study recommend it for 2 years, and I pushed it off. Yeah, that's great for you. Good for you. And I finally tried it, and I've been using it for about 4 or 5 months now, and it's changed the way I think about my money. So I've really enjoyed it and highly recommend it.
Okay, what's the name of it?
It's called YNAB. You Need a Budget, like those four-letter acronym. You Need a Budget. Yeah. I could talk to you for days on that. We could do a whole separate podcast.
Oh my God. Oh, I get it. YNAB. Got it. I was like, you and okay. I don't even tell you see, I haven't had enough caffeine yet.
There you go.
All right. I'm going to link to that in the tea in the show notes for sure. And you may see me with green tea in a couple of days. And this app I'm definitely looking into. Okay. I am so interested in this question. Twitter, TikTok, or Instagram?
I respect all three, even though I don't have them. I think TikTok is so fun, it sounds like. And I'm a big Taylor Swift fan, as I had dropped one of her quotes the other day. So I feel like people send me Swift talks all the time, as they're called apparently. So I'll go TikTok because I love getting those when people send me stuff about Taylor. So that's fun.
So Swift talks. I don't even know what that is, but now I want to look. So you don't have Twitter, TikTok? I know the answer to this, but I'm making sure everyone else does. Or Instagram. Is that right?
Correct. I have accounts because I had to have them when I was in the communications department. But I don't have the apps on my phone. I don't log in. If you're sending me messages on there, I'm sorry. I haven't seen them since 2014. But yes, I have them if I need to get something out of that, but not actively on them at all. It's kind of nice.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking earlier how jealous I am that she does not have any of these apps on her phone. So it's a freedom that I long to have. Yes. All right. Who's your biggest inspiration in life?
So many wonderful people. From an athlete perspective, I obviously just respect a lot of our golfers and what they've gone through and what they're doing right now for the sport. Personally, my grandfather has played a massive role in getting me to where I am at the PGA Tour, even, and just teaching me about golf. And he's just such a gentle-hearted human, and I just really respect his hard work and his love for his family. So probably my grandfather.
And as a child, what did you want to become when you grew up?
I wanted to be a dolphin trainer as a kid. I was like really into that. And then I realized you had to go to like marine biology, all of that. And I was not great in those subjects in school. So that was quickly realized that wasn't going to be a thing for me, but still love going to the aquariums and seeing them do their thing. It's always fun.
That's really, someone else has said that answer. That's really
Really?
fun. That's yes. All right. Last question. Finish this sentence. The future of women working in sports is
bright. I am so excited for what's ahead, for everyone behind, everyone ahead. We are just crushing it. And it's so fun to see and be a part of.
Yes. All right, Cara, this has been amazing. If someone wanted to get in touch with you, how can they go about doing that?
Yeah, my email address at the tour, Cara, Cara Canington, Canington at PGAtourHQ.com.
That is a long email. It sure is.
But if that doesn't work, I feel like my LinkedIn is also that is the one social platform that I will check every so often. So again, it's probably not as quick as an email. I will definitely go my emails, but LinkedIn is a good place as well.
Okay, fantastic, Cara. Thank you so much for your time. I know you have a lot going on in your world, so I appreciate you sharing some time with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is so important what you're doing for women and for sport, and we just really appreciate all your work that you're doing. So thank you for having me.
So what did you think of this episode? Do you know another woman who works or is aspiring to work in sports? Would you do me a favor and share this with them? It would mean so much if together we could support and inspire other women on their journey. And let's stay connected. I love meeting and talking to new people. Follow me on Instagram at Jahaan Blake and join the free Game of Her Own community by visiting jahaanblake.com. I can't wait to meet you.